But first, it's time for a couple of holy mackerel stories in today's news. Former President George W. Bush has made known his personal, principled decision to not criticize his successor. He has said about President Obama, quote, "I'm not going to spend my time criticizing him. There are plenty of critics in the arena. He deserves my silence." Protocol. George Bush won't criticize the new president. He won't undermine him. That task is left to the Cheney family. Or at least it was last night at a speech in Michigan, a speech in which Mr. Bush reiterated that he did not want to criticize President Obama. He ended up not being able to stop himself from doing it anyway. Asked what he thought about conservative pundits who say Obama is opening the door to socialism, Mr. Bush replied, quote, "I've heard talk about that. I think the verdict is out. I think people are waiting to see what all this means." I think the verdict is out? Doesn't the verdict come in because the jury is out? How could a verdict be out? Maybe the same way that I won't criticize Obama can also mean I won't deny dude might be a commie. Next up, international news. Russia has accidentally bombed itself. And now Russia is saying I'm very sorry to itself. The Russian Navy accidentally shot about 14 live artillery shells into a sleepy farming town near St. Petersburg. During a military exercise in the Gulf of Finland, a Russian anti-submarine vessel was trying to hit aerial targets. It missed very badly, more than a dozen times. Thankfully, no people were injured, but a few cottages were damaged. One local farmer described the shelling as, quote, "a metal hail." Russia's military is considering adopting Murphy's Law as its 21st century motto, or at least it ought to. In the year 2000, a Russian nuclear sub, the Kursk, sank to the bottom of the Barents Sea. All 118 men on board were killed. In July last year, 7 soldiers were killed when a live tank shell they were loading accidentally exploded. In November of last year, a firefighting mechanism on a nuclear sub malfunctioned and spewed out freon gas. 20 sailors died in that accident. In January of this year, 2 Russian military planes collided, killing 5 people. And I could go on. 3,500 Russian soldiers die in accidents or by suicide every year. Also, did I mention that this is the same country that still has thousands of nuclear weapons? But don't worry, I'm sure they're taking better care of their nukes than they are of their submarines, their planes, their tank shells, and their humans. And finally, as a person who is easily distracted from my work, as a person who's easily distracted from my work, I sympathize with the French tennis player in the French Open who just had to play a match against Michelle Larcher de Brito of Portugal. Miss Larcher de Brito is not only a very good tennis player, she is a very loud tennis player. Listen. Miss Larcher de Brito's noises were such that her opponent today asked the umpire several times to please make her be quiet.
But please, sorry, she's disturbing me with the screaming.
She is disturbing me with the screaming. The French player Aravan Rezai was able to defeat her vocally well-endowed opponent in 2 sets. The Portuguese teenager is hardly the first tennis player to get attention for the sound of her game. Monica Seles and Maria Sharapova have also been famous for their shrieking on the game during the game. You ready for the strange part of this story? Seles, Sharapova, and Michelle Larcher de Brito all trained at the same place, Nick Bollettieri's Tennis Academy in Bradenton, Florida. So there's your screaming sports conspiracy theory for the weekend. You're welcome.